hot up here. You didn't expect him to cover charts that you're going to see Wachtel partially disrobed, did you? Wait a second. All right. What was I talking about? I was talking about punk bands. Dinky, like I said, was one of the first sound guys in the late 60s in England to ever mix a band out in the audience. Before him, all sound men mixed the band in the orchestra in front of a band or off stage. Dinky was one of the first people to ever, one of the first sound people ever to do that. And then he came to work and mixed bands at the channel. It was great. All right, self-promotion.
Yeah.
That's me on the front.
Yeah.
Okay. Other clubs, Spit, the Metro, Jumpin' Jack Flash and the Fens, Jackson, Mass Ave, Cambridge, Jonathan Swiss and Harvard Square, the Underground, and all the colleges. You know, I remember seeing the Atlantics play at Boston College in the late 70s in their thin ties, singing Lonely Hearts. And the packed crowd, everyone knew every word that they were singing of every song. It really opened my eyes. We'll get to that about the scene in a few minutes, but we're great. Boston, every September, has college kids coming here from all over the world bringing their music. There's a college scene and there's a commercial scene. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But, okay, all right. I want to talk about I talked about some of the bars. I want to talk about two landmarks. The punk era, the punk generation, wasn't it, putting flowers out where people died, making landmarks for the next 3 decades. We were into other things. The Dogmatics, the band house in the South End. After their gigs, dozens of people would show up and drink out of kegs and hear bands play with until sunup. I was there. I couldn't believe it. These people were younger than me, and I'm sitting there saying, this is the South End. This is 1989. There's cars out there, and the cops came all the time. But they would continue drinking and continue playing music. You don't have places like that anymore. That was a great place. Were any of you out there ever at the Dogmatics house? No? No? See, that's why I'm here to tell you about it. The Dogmatics, if you don't remember the band, they're still around, they're still making music. Sort of like Chuck Berry meets the New York Dolls. That's a good way to talk about them. Great band. Sundays at Father's Too. That's another landmark place. They didn't have music at Father's Too, but you could count on Jill Weinstein managing, and Annie, the blonde-haired bartender who went out with John Felice and the Real Kids. And it's just a great blend of punk music, artists, just hanging, supporting each other, and getting drunk. The jukebox, the two songs I remember, the couple of songs I remember is Bobby Darin's Mac the Knife, and the Mission of Burma's My Academy, and Gangrene's Alcohol. And I remember when and these were played 50 times during a day. And I remember in the Gangrene's Alcohol, in the lines, I'd rather drink than fuck. Everybody in the nightclub, everybody in Father's Too, 7,500 drunken people, teenagers in their 20s too, and me in my young 30s would scream along those words every single time. And it was very inspirational. And you can hear about it on my podcast too with Chris Barney. Great, just great times. Manager Alec Peters of Gangrene used to tell me, he told me once, we make more money touring Europe than in Boston. And the reason, you know, we don't really give a shit about Boston, and this is Gangrene, the manager of Gangrene, and the reason I even bring that up is because this really shows you how good a starting point Boston was. You know, and I don't want to get into the scenes, you know, too much, but look, the bands like Boston, Gangrene, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, the Dropkick Murphys, all bands started here. New Kids on the Block, all these bands, Donna Summer, all these people started here, but had huge careers. You know, look at, you know, outside of Boston, it's a great place to start. Look at Dickie Barrett. He's Jimmy Kimmel's right-hand man. You know, Dickie Barrett's from Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. What a prime gig that is, huh? He's now all over the world as Jimmy Kimmel's sidekick for the past 20 years. You know, and he started out, in Boston, playing with his brother and drinking with me at Father's too on Sundays. Let me see. And speaking, and before I move on, I keep going to these notes. I don't want to forget anything, you know. Speaking about the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, former Gangrene bassist Joe Gittleman left Gangrene and joined the Boss Tones. And again, that's typical of the incestuous nature of the punk rock scene back in the 80s and back in the early 90s. Let's talk about the neighborhoods. They formed in high school. Drummer Mike Quaglia is still living in the Dominican Republic for many, many moons on the money he made for that band. He tells me there'll soon be new neighborhoods music with him back in the fold. And he owns an arcade down there, and Lee Harrington is the bassist, is a very, very successful entertainment lawyer. And Dave Minahan owns and operates Woolly Mammoth Studios for many, many moons. And their song, Prettiest Girl, when they were right out of high school in the punk music era, that was the #1 song out of Boston for more than a decade. And you know, the internet changed that because the universe got larger, the way they counted got different, and everything is, you know what, like, wow. You know, seeing them play Prettiest Girl and everybody freaking out, seeing 200 people in bun rallies or that, it was just a real thrill. We had a great music scene back then. Okay. And the Cars emerged from the punk 80s scene, but they weren't strictly a punk band either. Greg Hawkes on keyboards, that really changed a lot. Still hot. Back in the time, if you were a local punk band, you always wanted to sound a little bit like the Cars. And you also wanted to sound a little bit like Aerosmith. And you know, even though there's a lot of different variations of punk, you know, everybody tried to do and get on the bandwagon with what was selling out and getting airplay here. Okay. What else do I have there? Other 80s and 90s local punk bands that I saw, the Pixies, Dinosaur Jr., Belly, Buffalo Tom, Letters and Cleo, Morphine, the trio, drums, bass, and sax, Mark Sandman. Him and I were drinking friends, of course. And he died during a gig on stage in Italy, and I really liked his pop band Treat Her Right, which was more pop with them. A great R&B song, I Think She Likes Me. That's just a great song, one of the greatest songs ever out of Boston. He used to come, and we got to talk about G.G. Allen and his hardcore punk. I can't not talk about him. I didn't know him well, but we knew each other, we respected each other. He came into Bud Raddy's once doing a sound check with his girlfriend. And nobody's in the club but me, right? And all of a sudden, he's sitting down, he's drinking with his girlfriend, and he jumps on stage and goes to the microphone while the band's doing in the middle of a song for sound check, and he gets on stage and he breaks the mic. He grabs the mic, he throws it on the ground, and the guy who's running it, Mickey O'Halloran, he calls me upstairs and goes, AJ, you're friends with Gigi, you gotta kick him out. And of course I go, shit. So I'm the type of person you want on the front lines when the enemy's after you. I immediately thought, I go, okay, this is what I'll do. I walk downstairs and I can still picture in my mind, I can still see him and his girlfriend sitting at the table in the middle of the floor all alone, and I walked right behind the bar and I got 3 draft beers. And I walked over to the table, put 2 in front of him and his girlfriend and 1 in front of me, and I said, Gigi, Mickey O told me I gotta kick you out after we drink these beers. We sat and talked for 10 minutes, and then he finished the beer, didn't say another word, he got up and he shook my hand. And then he left. And that's Gigi Allen, that's my Gigi Allen story. You know, and he's wild because when he died, I don't know if it was from an OD or if it was an accidental or something like that, but I remember there are pictures online of him in his leather jacket, laying in his coffin with people climbing into the coffin with him. How's that for hardcore? That's out of my league. Okay. Okay, let's talk about Willie Alexander. Oh, you know, I'm still in touch with Gigi's brother, Merle, who still gets his band together, Gigi's band together, the Murder Junkies, every couple of years. He's living out of California, and they tour. Can you imagine seeing the Murder Junkies in a nightclub in 2024? How that would go over? I don't know. But let's talk about Willie Alexander, the godfather of Boston punk. He was also in the Lost during the Boston music era at Bagatelle. And in 1971, he became a joint member with the Velvet Underground, another person that started out in Boston and made it big outside of the city, replacing Sterling Morrison and appearing on their album Loaded. He just had a huge 80th birthday party up on the North Shore when he had all the, were you there, Mr. Kurt? Mr. Kurt was there. You know, I was a little bit afraid. I don't go to nightclubs like that. Here I am, I'm 68 years old. I'm afraid it's going to be like Spinal Tap, and everybody's going to laugh at me. So I didn't show. All right, so you can apologize to, you know, to Willie whenever, you know. But at any rate, and of course, when you talk about Willie, you have to talk about Billy Lasigian, one of the greatest guitarists ever to come out of Boston. His growling guitar has been on albums up and down. Everybody that, you know, during the time, he was the guy to go to if you were going to the studio. And he's just a wonderful guy. He's still around and he's still playing. And he's still playing with Willie. And let's talk about the modern lovers. And I'm going to make a fun Wachtel fact. I have never met Jonathan Richman in my life. Never met him in all the years he's been a rock star, and all the years I've been going to nightclub after nightclub. Our paths have never crossed. But I do know a lot of the members of his band: Joe Harvard, John Felice from the Real Kids, David Robinson from the Cards, Jerry Harrison from the Talking Heads. You know, a quirky band. His song Roadrunner keeps getting pushed away. You know, there's always the great debate. That or Dirty Water or this or that for the state song. And of course the career public servant criminals in Congress push it off to next year. But they'll vote for their next pay raise. You can bet that. coming to Boston. That's another song from the Dropkick Murphys that always gets up for grabs. I'd like to have a stage song. It wouldn't make my life any better or any worse. But what the hell? Let's give somebody some press. All right. Other bands, Thunder Train, Mock Bell, now in the Mock Bell Express with Johnny Press from Worcester's Velocity. Just a great punk frontman. Still around, DMZ, Jeff Conley from The Liars, J.J. Rassler on guitar. Another one of the great guitarists. He's now in the Downbeat 5 with Jane Angora singing. Just a great guitarist. Look, that's Peter Dayton's band, Better Off Dead. What a great song. Mission of Burma, Roger Miller, Clint Conley, and Peter Prescott still regroup and release music. Roger had hearing problems for decades and couldn't record. They had 2 songs on the Father's 2 Jukebox, like I said, My Academy, and that's when I reached for my revolver. Another great song out of Boston, a great punk ballad. And The Liars, She Pays the Rent, Help You In. Just 2 hits for the band where Mono Man, Jeff Conley, his frontman would play the organ. I have it's sort of like question mark and mysterious Meet the Ramones. And I've got a couple of great Conley stories. He used to work at Looney Tunes, where Pat McGrath from the Condo Pygmies owned his used record store right across from Berkeley. And every time I go in there to see if one of my albums, Boston Does the Beatles or Boston Gets Stoned, how they were selling and get money. And I go in every couple of months and I was bringing Harrison as he got to be 8, 9, 10. Him and Jeff Conley would disappear for 20 minutes and then Harrison would come back with 8 or 9, 3 hours Roman Empire films that Jeff had told him we had to watch. Spartacus, Cave Vetus. And I'd be there watching these gladiators, Mark Antony, and I'd be sitting there getting stoned. Harrison would be watching the TV, I know, it's a weird story. It doesn't say much about punk, but it says a little bit about Jeff Conley. He's as odd as they come, but as talented as they come also. He's known to be a Mono Man, was known to be a maniacal and unpredictable on stage and off. And that just proves you a little bit. We were drinking buddies for a few years. Here's a funny story. We were drinking buddies for a long time, me and Conley. And I was coming out with a new album, a new compilation album with all local bands doing Rolling Stones songs, produced by V. Jimmy Miller, called Boston Gets Stoned. And I go, Jeff, why don't you do a song for me? He goes, all right. So, he picks an obscure instrumental called Now I've Got a Weakness. It was a Brian Jones era instrumental from one of the first couple albums, and it's not even with his voice. It's an instrumental, but it's a great song. I didn't know if he was serious or not. I didn't know whether to say, well, fuck you. I didn't know whether to do that or not. He's a drinking buddy of mine, but it's a good song, and it's on the internet, and you should go listen to it. But that's,